those aspects of South African society which show great continuity amidst disorder. So, for example, my students and I do research on in-schools. Why are so many South African schools dysfunctional in the sense that students spend years, as we know, many kids in poor schools are still sitting there when they're 18 and 19 and 20. Kids in poor neighbourhoods are not leaving school for the most part at 16 or 17. They're sticking at it. They're very often spending the time in the classroom. And if you ask them how important is education, they'll all say, education is really important. There's no question about the value of education. Education is really important. Poor kids think that education is just as important as rich kids do. And if you ask them what you want to be when you're 30, but poor kids when they're 14 or 15, they'll all say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to go to university, I want to get a degree, I want to be a professional, I want to be a businessman. They have that aspiration. But of course, we know that only a minority of South African children complete matric, and in poor neighbourhoods it's a very small minority. Their aspirations get dashed against the rocky reality of what actually happens in schools. But what does go wrong in schools? Well, lots of things go wrong in schools. But one of the things that goes wrong in schools is, I think, that lots of South African teenagers, lots of South African school children have got no idea how the educational system works. At a very basic Bourdieusian level, they don't understand how the system works. They don't have the cultural capital that middle-class kids have, which is understanding the education system. They don't understand how you do better and how you do worse. They don't get feedback on their assignments, which tells them, explains to them what is right and what is wrong in ways that they can understand. Education just seems a lot. Maybe you'll pass, maybe you won't. You don't pass first time, have a second go. Maybe you'll pass second time. They don't have that cultural capital. We ask questions, we talk to people who are unemployed, who take transactions. Very often the same thing. We talk to plenty of unemployed young men and women who take transactions who don't understand how the labour market works. They don't understand how, hypothetically, one can get a job. They understand very well that there aren't very many jobs. But they don't understand how you would get a job if there was a job to get. So they send off CVs to retailers. Absolutely useless waste of time. Nobody ever gets a job in the township sending a CV. But kids just do it. They think that's how you get a job. It's nonsense. There is a serious problem of misrecognition in a Bourdieusian sense. There's a serious problem of misrecognition of how the system works. Now, I think this is probably also true in terms of attitudes to foreigners. I think that a lot of the common sense, which underpins xenophobia in South Africa, entails what Bourdieu would probably consider to be a misrecognition. Now, this isn't to say that unemployment or education or xenophobic attacks in South Africa are simply because poor kids misrecognise the sources and causes of the problem. I'm not saying that at the moment. There's really a whole structural context explaining why there aren't many jobs and why there's bad teachers in schools and why the schools might not have the resources which are important. And the fact that there's a large number of unemployed townships is clearly underpinning xenophobia in other respects as well. But I think part of the problem is a cultural problem. And we're not very well equipped to think about culture, I think, in post-apartheid South Africa. I find Bourdieu very helpful in thinking about the ways in which there are cultural dimensions which involve some kind of misrecognition, which underpin some of the ways in which inequality and stratification are reproduced over time. So I'm hoping that my students, will read this book, but when they read this book, they'll be inspired to engage more in conversations with other students, with other academics, right? That they will certainly not have the sort of starry-eyed approach to Bourdieu, which I probably had before I read this book. That they'll hopefully be appropriately critical of Bourdieu, and I hope that they'll certainly go and read Gramsci and de Beauvoir and Fanon and C. Wright Mills. I'm not so sure that they should spend that much time on Marx, actually. But I've got a lot of time for the rest of it. And I hope that they would go out and they would actually try and do it piecemeal, whether in fact we can make sense of the kind of complex mix of order and disorder that characterises contemporary South Africa in ways in which Bourdieu has got something to say. Thank you very much.
Because I'm a chairperson and Karl Marx will be led. Maybe we should go to Michael and to respond and then Karl. Michael?
First, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Quiet.
I'm delighted to be back with you, even if it's only virtual. Yes, well, it's always a bit weird to be at this end and to not see everybody. But let me say, those are all interesting and important comments, and I won't be able to respond to all of them. Anyway, Karl's going to respond to most of them. There may be a critique of Karl, not of me. Wow, you've disappeared.
Sorry.
That's okay, don't worry. As long as I can see Peter, that's all I need. Look, let me say first that I want to emphasize what I think Karl's contribution is to this book. I thought this book was very dry. When I was actually giving these lectures, or conversations, I was trying to incorporate bits of South Africa, but I felt I was failing miserably all the time, and that's why I suggested that I invited Karl to respond. And I think that really that's what makes the book exciting, to actually bring Bourdieu, as Peter said, to South Africa. And I just want to say that after all there's a response in some ways to what Peter was saying. I think that what Karl brings to the table is something that Bourdieu really didn't talk about, and that is the relationship between symbolic violence and coercive violence. And that's the South African context. And so that was, I thought that this was the brilliant intervention of Karl in this book, was to really force Bourdieu to reconsider the significance of his work in Algeria and bring it alongside his work in France. And basically, I think he separated the two. Karl says, look, you've got to think about symbolic violence alongside coercive violence. And I think that applies to South Africa, but I think it applies to anywhere in the world, but in different ways. Oh, we've disappeared on them. Oh, well. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Yes. I can't see you, but it doesn't matter. The light's gone out on South Africa. Oh, well. Anyway. Yes, I'm back. The second point about Karl is that he really wrestled with this concept of habitus. And there we disagree. I think we both think we have to rescue the concept of habitus, but I think he's much more positive about it than I am. And I think the very fact that he brings forth this idea that is certainly not in Bourdieu, the idea of the habitus of defiance. That's very important. And the question then is, what theory of habitus is going to allow us to talk about the habitus of conformity and subjugation on the one side and defiance on the other? We need to really, as I say, revamp this concept. And I think, as I say somewhere in the book, I say that basically habitus is a fancy word for a folk concept. It's a very useful concept, but it's not really scientific. It sounds scientific, but really it's a tautology, and it really has to go. We need it, but it has to go. We need to replace it by a real psychology. And I think, even Fanon has a psychology that is superior, in my view, to Bourdieu. Now, right, that's the second set of questions about Karl's intervention. Now, Philip, Jeremy, you raised this question about the importance of Bourdieu. And you think that I think you said, somewhere, you said that I throw Bourdieu away. It's very weird if I spent so much time, 5 years, doing field research on Bourdieu and then throw him away. No, I don't think I'm throwing him away. I think that I am using Bourdieu in these conversations to problematize Marxism and to raise questions for Marxism that are of a very profound character. Questions that I think Bourdieu himself had for Marxism. I agree with you, Jeremy, that the concept of misrecognition is very important.